Welcome back, Dolphins. Hit that like and subscribe if you enjoy the video. Today we're going to be discussing something that just recently happened. It was on the Kay Adams show. And basically what happened is that Tyreek Hill started talking about what he said at the end of the year. And honestly, finally gave something that kind of clears the air in my head. I mean, personally, I think it's a great thing that what he just did. Gave an apology to Tua. That was the key here. It's like the thing is what he said at the end of the year, which we'll go into it and we'll discuss basically what he said. It was like throwing everyone under the bus, including the quarterback that you had been praising the entire time that you had been here. You took the money for him. You're getting paid a significant amount of money. And when you said what you said, you basically were saying like, yo, screw all my teammates. I don't want to do this anymore. And there was a point where I thought that this was not going to happen. He wasn't going to issue an apology, and he wasn't going to basically say yo, I messed up. But he did. Here's the thing with Tyreek Hill. We all have to understand, and we're starting, me personally, I'm slowly starting to, get to that point where I understand what he is. He's an emotional guy. He's a very emotional guy. He relies on his emotions a lot, and sometimes they get the better of him. And maybe sometimes, just like all of us, he has moments where stuff comes out and it's not great. And I think what he did right now with what he said, which we'll talk about it in a second, it's a Sports Illustrated article where he basically states that, he just kind of throws that apology all around and just basically, makes himself look good again, and this is all I wanted. This is all I think a lot of Dolphins fans really wanted from him, because of course you're frustrated, like you get beat the crap out of by the Jets, and you get to watch Kansas City Chiefs again go to the Super Bowl, and it's tough. I mean, it's not a good feeling, especially like with Mike McDaniel and the way it's been going. They destroyed the offensive line, and the play calling wasn't great, and of course I get that, but it was the fact that we understand your frustration, but, there was also a lot of stuff on your end that messed us up in the long run. So when he said what he said and didn't really, he did apologize a little bit, but it wasn't like this, it's basically throwing the quarterback under the bus, the guy that you had basically rooted for the whole entire time. You kind of said that, this whole team stinks, and that we don't have dogs and all of that stuff. Which I get it, I understand what he's trying to say, and again, he's a very emotional guy, but he gives a huge apology. So basically, the 2024 season didn't end the way the Miami Dolphins had hoped. They lost their season finale to the division rival New York Jets, missing the playoffs for the first time since 2021. This also marked the first time in his career that star wide receiver Tyreek Hill failed to make the postseason. Naturally, Hill was frustrated, ending the season on a sour note that left the Dolphins. I just got to do what's best for me and my family. During a Fortnite stream not long ago, Hill vented about those frustrations in an unfiltered rant. What y'all heard at the end of the season was frustration, and I've been winning my whole life, bro. Y'all don't understand. I bust my bleep every day. I deserve to feel like that. I deserve to have some kind of opinion. Y'all just want me to say, oh, well, get him next year. Nah, bleep that. We've got to come back. We got to put some pressure on bleep. Y'all got to fix this bleep. Come on, add some bleep dogs in this bleep. I compete. I love to compete, bro. So now, in a Friday interview with Up and Adams with Kay Adams, Hill apologized for his statements. Tua is my guy, Hill said. Always will be my guy no matter what. I'm sure he understands my frustration. We all want to win. Tua is another competitor. He's a hell of a competitor. A lot of people don't know that. He's a winner. He's consistent. I'm looking forward to us continuing to build our relationship even more. This is my public apology to you, Tua. I love you, bro. Hill also made sure to clarify his feelings about the rest of the Dolphins. On God, yeah, he said, they already know this, though. They know that I'm not that kind of player. A lot of people may say Reek is a hothead, he's this, he's that. All my teammates know I come to work every day, I bust my tail. I show up to meetings on time, and I do what I got to do. This was the first time Hill publicly addressed the heated remarks. Hopefully it mends any fences. I think it truly does. I think this was what we needed to hear. You're frustrated. I get it. But, again, we needed to hear this from Tyreek Hill. I think Tyreek Hill just kind of had, the way that it was accumulating with Tyreek Hill, because when you were in the Kansas City Chiefs, he was Tyreek Hill, but he had Kelsey there, and Kelsey was basically the dude with Patrick Mahomes. Now on the Dolphins, like, the center of attention is basically on him and Tua. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot, and I think he just had a year where just a lot of things happened. You know, I disagree with the way that he handled the police remarks and all that stuff, but I think a lot of things were thrown at him this year on top of, you know, the whole year were just trash. You know, like, we just did not have a shot. And it got to him. And I think this public apology definitely mends things. Now I officially say that I don't think you need to trade Tyreek Hill. I think you can keep him here. I think, you know, the player that he is, I just needed to see that. I just didn't want to have a toxic player in this room. Now we can put this to the back burner, you know, and we can focus on this year. And I totally agree with what he said, you know, on the video game thing or whatever the hell it's called. I agree with that. You know, you need to put pressure on this stupid coach because he continues to, and this dumb GM, they continue to not put an offensive line out there. And I think that's what you kind of mean. You know, you continue to do this crap and it never works. So we're going to get into next of what they need to learn from the Super Bowl right now. Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel need to focus on this Super Bowl and see, because there's a blueprint for why these teams are here, and they need to understand what that blueprint is. So we're going to go to both teams and what the Dolphins, the first thing that they need to understand, man, get a freaking offensive line, bro. Like, these two teams, the reason that they're in Super Bowls continually is they have a consistent offensive line. You got a guy in free agency now this year that is one of the best guards that's on the Kansas City Chiefs. The only one that they have is a weak link on the left tackle. And, you know, that'll be solidified because he was a rookie. Every single player on that offensive line is very good. And of course, they paid also a lot of money for one of the top free agents on the offensive line a couple years ago. So again, you look at the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, we don't have to talk about Philly. Like, the reason Jalen Hurts looks pretty great is this offensive line is the best in the league. It's been the best in the league for years. This is the reason why these teams are in the Super Bowl. It's not because of all their talented players, because they have talented players, we have talented players. It's not because of that. It's because both of these teams understand that you lose when you don't have an offensive line. I don't care how stupid, crazy, gadgety your dumb offense is. It doesn't matter. You build an offensive line. That's how you get to Super Bowls. And again, we have Anthony Weaver coming in this year. So this defense is going to be pretty decent still. It's not going to take a fall off. We're probably going to get better players, and we're going to be a better defense this year. The key to this freaking year, to getting over the hump, which a lot of people say that we're way far off. We're really not. The key to this freaking year is getting a damn offensive line for Tua. You know, I know a lot of people want to say a lot of things about Tua. This poor kid has not had a good offensive line since he stepped in the league. He has not had a top 22 offensive line since he stepped in the league. That's embarrassing that you have a guy that's 6 foot tall, that is not as big as other quarterbacks, and you refuse to get him a line every single year. And dumb McDaniel, you know, no offense to him, I don't like insulting people, but, you know, it's just nonsense. It's just stupidity that you think you can out-scheme the basics of football. Get him an offensive line this year. That's the first key that you have to see with this team. The second key that you have to see with this team is the drafting and retaining of players. What Chris Grier has done is he missed on a lot of different players. And what's even better about Chris Grier is the players that he did hit on, most of them leave. Typically, almost all of them go into free agency because you pay free agents all this money that you can't sign back the young players that you have drafted that have turned out to be great. Robert Hunt, Christian Wilkins. It's probably going to be Javon Holland again, which I know people say things about Javon Holland, but again, we don't have the money to pay Javon Holland. Who else was there? I'm forgetting the names of them, but you see, like, the core that we had right now, you know, having Javon Holland, having Christian Wilkins, having, you know, Robert Hunt. These are guys that you should have signed back instead of paying, you know, no offense, but players like Bradley Chubb and all that, and whiffing on a bunch of different picks, you know, like the Noah Benogany and you know, a bunch of the other picks that we had. I mean, basically the whole entire first draft of Mike McDaniel, none of them are playing right now. You know, so that was a completely wasted year. You know, and I understand you spent it on Tyreek Hill, but the thing is these teams they build through the draft and they retain their players. A lot of these offensive linemen and things like that, they retain these players. They get them to a point where they're good enough and they pay them money. You know, the thing is with Robert Hunt and Christian Wilkins is instead of paying the free agents that you were paying, if you just decided, hey, this is a rebuild. We don't need to make the Super Bowl the first year. You take the young players that have been on your team for a couple of years and you extend them. You have a contract extension so that we don't have to wait till they're worth $100 million and you can't pay them anymore. If they had extended Robert Hunt and Christian Wilkins, Christian would have been like a $70 million a year or a $70 million contract, and Robert Hunt would have been like a $50 million or a $60 million contract. But instead, you start signing free agent players and you let these guys go. And the third thing that's going to be probably the most important out of all of this is you have Devon Achane, you have Jalen Wright, you're probably going to get another running back. You build this offensive line because the one thing that you see about both of these teams, yes, Patrick Mahomes is fantastic, 100%, but they're both running the football. That's what their team is built on. Patrick Mahomes' team has Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco, and they run the football. Jalen Hurts, we all know, has Saquon Barkley. These teams are built on running the football. When Mike McDaniel came out of San Francisco, his thing was run game coordinator. So the fact that we can't run the ball is so crazy to me. You build a freaking offensive line so that you can run the ball, so that Tua, when he plays these physical teams, because the biggest problem that we have happened, people want to sit there and say that Tua sucks. He doesn't suck. It's just when you play the physical teams, the teams that have a great defensive line, our offensive line for the past 4 years has been garbage. And every time, what happens every single time, it's not a good or bad team, it's just typically good teams have good defensive linemen. They have good, pass rushers. They have all the trenches. What every time happens to the Miami Dolphins is we play these teams and their defensive line just abuses our offensive line. Every friggin' time. When you watch the Green Bay Packers game, Teron Armstead had a horrible game. Basically Austin Jackson was out and Liam Eichenberg and everybody just whiffed on everything. Tua had zero time to throw. Happens in the Houston Texans game. They have Danielle Hunter and they have, all their pass rushers. Completely destroyed our offensive line. Tua had no time to throw. Every single time this happens, what you need to do is you need to get this offensive line right, number one, and run the ball. Be a run-first team. You have the running backs now. Devon Achane is a stud. Jalen Wright is going to be a stud. You have the running backs. Run the ball and do it in a way where you can set up, because Tua is a very good play-action quarterback. Do it so you can set that up. Be more of a West Coast style of offense instead of this spread out, gadgety, whatever. West Coast style of offense is based off the running inside the tackles and then doing play action to hit players over the top. Because again, if you run the ball right, that's the reason why these safeties were playing back. It's not because they caught on to our offensive scheme. It's because for the most part of the year, we could not run the ball. So the safeties would just play back because they knew most likely the linebackers would clean up whatever running back was there. So they didn't need to do that. When you have a great running game like we've had before with Mostert, the safeties have to play up, which lets Tyreek Hill get over the top. But if you don't have a run game, if you don't have an offensive line that can block and you don't have a run game, well, the safeties are just going to play back. You're going to have two high safeties. That's what's going to happen every time. And then your little gadgety down the field passing is going to be obsolete because they're just double teaming Waddle and Hill. Make sure that you get an offensive line, because on top of all that, what's so dumb is that then you have to put Jonnu and tight ends and running backs to block. You can't even fully do your offense because your offensive line sucks. Get the offensive line right. If you want to watch, there's a video I just made on the free agent offensive guards that we need to sign. Get a bunch of guards. Draft a guard as well. Get a bunch of bodies on this offensive line so that we can have a very decent offensive line. Because these three things, if you implement these three things in this offseason, because we're going to be able to move cap space, things are going to happen, we're going to restructure this, that, and the other thing. We're not that far. We have very good wide receivers. We have very good running backs. We have a very good tight end. We have very good corners. I think people don't understand that the reason the corners weren't great is because we had no pass rush. Now, when we come into this year, we have Bradley Chubb, we have Jalen Phillips, we have Chop Robinson, we have Zach Sealer, and we're probably going to draft another pass rusher. You got Jordan Brooks in the back. It's basically the safeties that you need to figure out. The safeties in the slot corner. So when you come into this year, if you just fix the offensive line, it literally can change everything. I know people they love being Debbie Downers because they don't quite see that you can look at teams like the Rams and everything. They completely turn it around in 1 year. Dolphins can do that. The key to all of this and the key to getting to this type of style of play, we don't need to make the Super Bowl, but to be able to be a physical team, you need to get an offensive line. And Mike McDaniel, I don't know if he can be a leader of men. People like him, but you need to just implement this style of team. It's as simple as that. Like Tyreek Hill can do all this crap if you just get an offensive line. He can do whatever he wants. It's just when you don't have any time, Tua has to just get the ball out. And when you have to just get the ball out, sometimes if you run the wrong route, you're going to throw an interception. That's just what's going to happen. So again, that's my rant. Like the Tyreek Hill did what he did today. These are the things that they have to watch in the Super Bowl. And I hope Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel are watching this, seeing real coaches build real teams. And Philly fans, you need to shut the hell up about the Sirianni thing. If you guys want to fire Sirianni, I really hope the Miami Dolphins hire him because he's done a great job. These are the reasons why these teams are in the Super Bowl. And the Miami Dolphins can turn it around just like that if they do this now. Again, the basis of it, it's just the offensive line. Just get that this year. I don't want to see another year with this offensive line. You go into the offseason and you're like, dude, this looks not great. It needs to be like this offensive line is blowing people's minds. That's what it needs to be like. This offensive line is blowing people's minds away. And that's what I want coming this year. I want Tua to have 4-5 seconds to throw the ball. That's what I want. If you get that, you will be able to compete with any team that you want. It doesn't matter as long as you get that. So again, with the Tyreek Hill thing and all that, I think it's under the rug. Tyreek Hill will be back this year. He's going to play. I enjoyed that he did this. This is a great thing. But again, he's kind of right. Get some damn dogs on this team. Build this damn beefy offensive line so that they can compete with these good teams instead of being this stupid gadgety crap that we've continued to see. It doesn't work. Build a football team. That's my rant. Fins up, everybody. Love you all. Peace.